Welcome back to Dwells and Dice, this is Mathematically Correct Sharpshooter. Today we'll be looking at when is it actually worth it, what weapon synergizes with it the best, and how far can we push a simple build. If you don't know what it is, you get Sharpshooter low ground, so you get no low ground penalty, which is a nice quality of life, although we're not looking at that in this build. You also get Sharpshooter all in, which is optionally take a -5 to hit for a +10 damage. This is more interesting so we can see where the crossover point is. For the sake of consistency across all of my builds so they can all be compared within the series, this is the levels at which I'll be taking different enemies' ACs. So level 1 through 5, Act 1 is a 13, and you can read the rest of the table. So we're assuming you're a level 9 in this build, so it's an Act 2 build, an enemy level of 17. You get 4 turns per combat, and 3 combats per day with a short rest in between. This keeps everything comparable across all of the different builds we'll be doing. However, this one is slightly different. We're going to be taking a bard, so instead of 3 combats per day, we'll be doing 4, because you get the extra short rest per day from the Song of Rest. Now let's look at the build. As I said, we'll be taking a bard, so that's a College of Swords bard at level 6. Then you'll either be taking an Assassin Rogue at level 3, or a Thief Rogue at level 3. We'll be comparing the damages between these two different rogues partnered with the bard. Now let's have a look at feats. Of course, this video is all about Sharpshooter, so that's the main one that we'll be looking at. You have a dexterity of 17 off the baseline, and then you'll add an anti-Ethel's hair to go up to 18 and a +4 to hit. Now we need to compare the Sharpshooter to something else, so I chose ability score improvement to take that up to 20 or a +5 to hit. There really aren't that many feats that are great for a ranged build. The only other one I could think of was taking a proficiency in heavy crossbow, so I had a quick look into that, and to be honest, the damage was quite lackluster. Compared to all the other builds, it wasn't even close, so in terms of saving time, I'm not even going to look at it. However, if you can think of another feat that works really well with a ranged build, let me know in the comments below. Of course, we need to consider the chance to hit. So you'll have a proficiency bonus of +4 at level 9, the ability modifier from Sharpshooter being +4, or from ability score improvement being +5. I'm going to shorten ability score improvement to ASI throughout this video, just so you know. When an enemy has an AC of 17, we can count up the Sharpshooter and ASI as follows. So the Sharpshooter is going to be -5 because we're going to be taking the all-in, then +4 and +4. For the ASI it's +1, +5 and +4, giving us for Sharpshooter a 14 to beat, 35% for normal and 64 for advantage, and an ASI down at 7, so normal 70 and advantage is up at a whopping 91. If you love the maths behind Baldur's Gate 3 as much as I do, hit the like button so it can share to other min-maxers. Thank you very much. Now of course I've already discounted the heavy crossbow, but we need to look at the light crossbow and hand crossbow. They deal 1d8 and 1d6 respectively. The light crossbow comes with piercing shot, and the hand crossbow also comes with piercing shot, mobile shot, and is dual wieldable. Mobile shot means that if you take a dash or similar action on your turn, you can use your bonus action to fire anyway. Of course, once you start dual wielding, this doesn't make a difference because you'll use your bonus action to fire your offhand. Because we're using Bard, you've got the extra slashing flourish, so you can do an extra attack on that action. Then you'll do your second action attack, and then you'll do your bonus action attack if you're using the hand crossbow. I thought therefore I would graph the damage to see which one is actually worth it, and if there's a crossover point. As you can see, because the lines are divergent, that means that the light crossbow will never catch up to the hand crossbow, and therefore the hand crossbow is better in every single circumstance. And if you're questioning, but what happens if you want to use a bonus action? You don't want to use your bonus action every time to fire your crossbow, you are right. So I looked at that. It'll take 2 bonus actions of a difference for them to be equal, and 3 for light crossbow to come above. So if you're doing 3 jumps within your combat, then yes, the light crossbow might be better. But in all honesty, the hand crossbow should always outperform the light crossbow in every single circumstance unless you're doing this. If you like this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button. There'll be a lot more to come in the future. Thank you very much. Now let's look at what the builds can bring to the table. The College of Swords Bard gives you 1 slashing flourish per turn, which is 2 attacks plus 2 1d8 bardic dice. Partnering this with the Assassin, you get your surprise round, advantage and guaranteed crits on your hits. This all in all gives you 4 attacks per turn. Comparing this to the Thief where you only get the extra bonus action for the extra attack with your offhand. You go up to 5 attacks per turn. I'm going to go through the first one a little bit slower, but then after that I'll speed up. So for ASI Assassin, we'll be looking at the crit turn first, then the 3 normal turns. So to start with, the damage is the damage of the weapon times the number of attacks, plus the bardic and the sneak attack dice, times 2 times the crit chance. This is because we're guaranteed to crit on this round, so we don't need to look at when we don't crit because we will always be critting. The crit chance therefore is basically just the hit chance in this situation. You then add on the additional damage times the number of attacks, times the hit chance. This is just to take into account the damage that doesn't crit. This will be things like your dexterity adding onto it, because these things don't crit, but they still have to be added onto the damage calculation. So therefore, it's 3.5 times 4, plus 9 plus 7, times the 2 for the fact you've crit, times the crit chance, plus your 5 from dexterity, times the number of attacks, times the chance to hit. This gives us 72.8 damage on your burst round. Now it's time to look at the sustained damage. It's a little bit more complex, but I've colour coded it for ease of understanding. So the damage in the pink is just the crit, in the orange is the non-crit, and in the blue is all the additional damage. So in the pink, we've got weapon times attacks, plus the bardic and sneak, times 2 times crit chance. This is just the same as before. Then for the orange, this is where your attacks did not crit. So it's the weapon times attacks plus the bardic plus the sneak, times just your normal hit chance. The additional damage is again the same as before, times the attacks, times the hit chance. This gives us, overall, 36.5 damage in your sustained rounds. Of course, we need to add on the burst round, and we do 3 of the sustained rounds, giving us 182 damage in total. As I said, I'll be going through these a little bit quicker, so for the ASI Thief, you get an extra attack with the bonus action from Thief. That's the only real difference here. All the other calculations are the same, and it's the same colour coding so you can understand it. Pink is the crit, orange is the normal, and blue is the additional. Therefore, going through the exact same calculation as before, we get 42.6 damage per turn. Now this is the same damage every single turn, and therefore we get 171 damage per combat. Now let's look at Sharpshooter Assassin, the burst round. We're dealing normal crit damage plus the additional damage, which grants us overall 74.2 damage in that burst round. Of course, we need to look at the sustained damage for the Assassin Sharpshooter. So it's the same calculation as before, plugging in the numbers, we get 31.6 damage on your sustained round. Then, adding on the burst round, we get 169 damage per combat. Finally, we're moving on to the last one, the Sharpshooter Thief. So this one should marry the best of both worlds of dealing extra damage with the Sharpshooter and shooting off 5 attacks per turn with your hand crossbows. This is my predicted best, so let's find out. You've got the normal calculation for the crit, the normal and the additional. Plugging in the numbers, we get a grand total of 41.3 damage per turn. Extrapolating that out to the full combat, we get 172 damage per combat. Now let's compare all the builds. As you can see, we've got the feats and the classes on the left hand side, the damage per combat in the middle, and then the damage per day on the right. Overall, you can see that ASI Assassin with 182 damage per combat and 729 damage per day comes out in first. It is the only one to crack the 700 damage per day, and therefore is the best one in the list. This doesn't mean that the other builds are not viable, quite the opposite, these builds are actually quite good. However, ASI Assassin is the best way to just stretch your damage numbers that little bit more. You could argue that you're going to be more likely to overkill things as the ASI Assassin, and therefore the Sharpshooter Thief is likely the best, to be honest. This way you don't overkill things, you have the most damage spread out because you have the extra attack. Overall, I would pick Sharpshooter Thief, however ASI Assassin is technically the mathematically correct one. Thank you very much for watching, have a wonderful day, bye bye.